Our group will be discussing the 2015 Volkswagen's emissions scandal. My name is Michael Meredith.
I'm Jared Webster.
Megan Greer.
I'm Emma Buchanan.
The Volkswagen emissions scandal unraveled in 2015 when Volkswagen cheated on emissions tests and decreased the levels emitted only during testing, which caused dangerous levels of pollution to be entered into the air. Volkswagen ended up having to pay a $2.8 billion fine, but they also took a $32 billion loss total. According to The Guardian, nitrogen oxides have been blamed for thousands of premature deaths from heart and lung disease. And according to Forbes, Volkswagen and the EPA settled for a $14.7 billion agreement.
So these are a few of the problems that are regarding nitrogen oxide. So the nitrogen oxide emissions and related pollutants can be transported over long distances, and it can create acid rain and smog that is harmful to humans and the environment. And the Volkswagen Jetta emitted 15 to 35 times more nitrogen oxide than allowed by the US.
Alright, so I know we just heard a little bit about the science behind the emissions scandal. There's some more specific things about it. The devices were quote unquote defeat devices, and this was about 11 million vehicles worldwide. They made it seem as if the pollution that was coming out of the cars was smaller. They really just put a nitrogen oxide blocker on the cars to pass the emission tests, and the executives of the company really were not truthful in this entire process, continually just basically brushing it under the rug, and that's how they got away with it for so many years. Alright, so here are Michael and I to talk about some of the most important people involved in the VW emissions scandal that they're calling Dieselgate. The first that I want to discuss is Ferdinand Piëch. He was the chairman of the executive board from 1998 to 2002, and the chairman of the supervisory board from 2002 to 2015. Forbes reported Piëch as the most powerful figure at Volkswagen at the time. Some argue that his authoritarian culture fostered this scandal, and although the prosecutors really haven't created any direct links between Ferdinand Piëch and the Dieselgate in itself, CNBC reported that the scandal will forever stain all great things that he accomplished. Next, we have Martin Winterkorn, the CEO from 2007 to 2015. Before the scheme, Winterkorn was the #1 top paid CEO in the country. He quit after the scandal, but he really didn't take any of the fault. And according to Fortune.com, on September 18th, the EPA filed a case against Volkswagen, which by the next Monday created a drop in the stock market for them by 15 points. And that's when New York also filed a lawsuit against Volkswagen at the time for this Dieselgate, as they were calling it, and that caused them to take back 11 million vehicles from customers. Then we have more of the hero. We have Matthias Mueller, the CEO from 2015 to 2018. At the time, Los Angeles Times reported that the profit margin climbed from 2015 to 2018 by 1.4%, from 6% to 7.4%. And this also allowed the company to really just get back on its feet and fend off Toyota as retaining their status as the top world's largest automaker. So here's Michael to talk about some of the other important people.
Thank you, Jared, for your insight on those people. So Herbert Diess took over as CEO in 2018 following the Mueller reign. He's still currently the CEO at Volkswagen. And Volkswagen has come out and said that Diess was a big part in continuing their profitable growth throughout the course of the first half of 2018 through deliveries, sales revenue, and earnings and all that. But however, Herbert Diess has been in the midst of a few scandals of his own, none to the level of Dieselgate in 2015, but still scandals nonetheless. He was accused of manipulating the stock market in 2015 after the Volkswagen emissions scandal. And even worse, he's recently under fire for using a Nazi-era phrase in a management meeting of his company in Volkswagen. And the phrase was apparently so bad that one of his own managers in the company reported it to the media. So that's not a good look for Diess, but he still is the CEO at Volkswagen today. Now, the one that took Dieselgate the hardest was probably Oliver Schmidt, who was chief of engineering at Volkswagen from 2012 to 2016. He's serving 7 years plus a $400,000 fine for his role in the emissions scandal, specifically for violating the Clean Air Act and conspiracy to defend the federal government. And he also attempted to obtain approval for the sale of the vehicles that had the defeat device in them without disclosing his knowledge of these devices or what Volkswagen was hiding with the cars. And finally, we have James Liang, who was an engineer at Volkswagen since 1983. He stepped down in 2008, and according to the New York Times, he never financially benefited from aiding in the development of these defeat devices, but instead he was just too loyal and too unwilling to expose these deceptive practices of this company just because of his loyalty to the company. And he also was making $350,000 a year at Volkswagen and did not want to step down from that. Now, he also continued to improve and refine these defeat devices to better recognize when the vehicles were being tested. So he was a person who was continually working on these devices to insert into the vehicles at Volkswagen.
Through our research of Dieselgate, we found that over 350,000 cars were affected with the emissions scandal, and they all qualified for a buyback program that Volkswagen had, and they could receive anywhere from $12,500 to $44,000. And we found that cars with the 3-liter tanks could not qualify for the buyback, so Volkswagen actually did another buyback starting in 2017. Volkswagen is still currently doing the buyback program, and it ends December of 2019. And they were also required by law to pay at least $10 billion in buyback repairs. So for the emissions modifications, car owners actually have to have a pre-qualified check from law to see if they qualify for the buyback. And according to Motley Rice, this is the appropriate action to take if you have a buyback vehicle. So it starts with an eligibility check, and then your registration, submitting a claim, and then ending with accepting the offer. And although this scandal occurred over 5 years ago, we have some recommendations on how Volkswagen could have handled it. First, we see that they could have prevented the scandal entirely if they would have implemented a strong set of company values for employees to follow. We also said that by hiring ethical individuals and doing a pre-screening employment check, they would be able to get the company on the right path. And we also said that creating a system and checks and balances would have helped a lot so that the employees would be able to hold each other accountable. And we said that the cost of doing so would be the time it requires to instill a strong set of values, as well as the cost of hiring ethical employees and doing an ethics training. And according to a study performed by John Delaney and Donna Sokol, in which they asked students to assess the effectiveness of ethics training, the results suggest that ethics training has a positive effect. At a minimum, respondents exposed to ethics programs perceive that their firms treat moral dilemmas in a more sensitive way. The benefits of these preventative actions would obviously be preventing a scandal of this magnitude, but also the accountability and creating a trusting relationship between the employees and the employer. So the next suggestion we have for Volkswagen is to be completely transparent with testing agencies, and to do so they would need to create an internal audit committee and have auditors to watch closely, and employees who are under audit are obviously going to act more ethically because they know that they're being watched meticulously. And also, positive audit results can boost company morale and improve the reception from the public. And the cost of doing this would be hiring a committee and training them on current standards, but the benefits would be they would be able to show the public that Volkswagen is an ethical company, and they
would be able to improve the tarnished relationships they have with the regulatory agencies.
And the last recommendation that we have for Volkswagen is for them to establish an improvement and new era campaign. So their first step to doing this is a written public apology. And then through a social media campaign, they can reach 2 billion social media users. And we developed this advertisement here, which is an advertisement that they could post in 2020 with just a fresh and new look to give them that new era feel. So maybe that will take some of the feeling off of the scandal and onto like a new idea that they have. They can also measure the public reception of the campaign and see how well it's performing and what it is who it's attracting, and if it's attracting the right target market that they're trying to reach. But the cost of this is running the campaign advertisement and also hiring a new marketing committee of experts to help them get back on their feet. But benefits are rebranding Volkswagen and also creating new relationships and establishing new relationships with manufacturing companies that maybe have lost trust in them. So how they actually handled things. The executive stepped down after apologizing. The CEO stepped down and claimed no fault. They recalled and repaired all the affected vehicles, as well as had to pay $20 billion in fines and lawsuit settlements. Now they're making 4 new models that are going to be released soon, and they've already made an e-Golf model that is available now. And these are electric models to focus on being more environmentally friendly. To summarize, Volkswagen got caught in an emissions scandal in 2015 when vehicle manufacturers had been scheming to rig its diesel engines for decades to appear environmentally friendly and perform well on tests. This allowed the company to sell vehicles that would not otherwise legally be approved. And to conclude, Volkswagen can return to the company that it has built for 8 decades through regaining trust in the vehicle industry, establishing a new brand, and sticking to a strict code of ethics that all employees have to sign off on.